how about knowledge versus belief? What is knowledge and what is belief, and what are their respective value and or place in how we understand the world?
Knowledge, what would knowledge be? Knowledge would be, probably any collection of true statements. If we agree that truth is representative or some kind of representation of reality, then any collection of those representations would account for knowledge about the world, whether it's, whatever it might be. A belief, I believe, is probably, I don't know, it's probably driven by desire more than anything, that we take an idea that is compelling in some way, and we search for its truth before actually finding it to be true and then saying, look, this is true. We pick something out of the sort of the infinite basket of human ideas and say, we like this one, or this one is compelling in some way. And that's, in saying that, we believe that it is right. And we express that belief through our attempt to find it in truth. I don't think belief does much for humanity. I don't think that there is much value to be put in it, other than if there exists a point in which we realize that knowledge precedes any means of representation. That is to say, if there is such a thing as a priori knowledge, then that would probably be best understood in terms of belief or intuition or something other than knowledge itself, because I agree with you when you say that knowledge is a system of representations. I'll pause at that point. Do you have any comments so far?
Sure, yeah, I would agree with most of that. Maybe just to give it a little bit different perspective. When I talk about truth, and truth being the a measure or a description of how well a model or a representation of reality comports with reality itself, I would say then that knowledge are those representations or models of reality which have had some kind of confirmation, right? The things we experience with our senses, those are confirmed, especially if we've experienced them many, many, many times.
Well, not that I would disagree with. Not necessarily. For example, it is true that all widows have no husbands. And in that requires no sensory anything, you see. That does not necessitate the experience of every woman on the planet who does not have or who calls herself a widow to then confirm. That's a linguistic. Name one thing that's not linguistic.
Okay, let me be more clear. That is a definitional thing. That is true by definition. It's not true.
That is true by definition.
Because of any experience of reality. All widows have no husbands by definition.
That's true. That's true. But it's also still truth, you see. So now you have this very messy business of deciding what's true based on definition, and then what's true based on what? What's the second?
Based on observation. I mean, we've created that truth. That truth is only true in language, and so long as language exists and we use it.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely.
Other truths are true independently of language. So
maybe not. Maybe not. If you are claiming that you can observe things, you first have to believe that there is something to be observed, right? You have to think in a linguistic system in which you say that you are of one subjectivity and that the world exists you in a certain objectivity, something that can be perceived. And so from the very get-go, you begin in a linguistic system. And so, though I can empathize...
That's true.
Pardon?
But that doesn't mean we begin in a linguistic system. But that doesn't mean at all what I'm calling knowledge is necessarily only true for linguistic systems.
Name me some knowledge that doesn't adhere to language.
When a bear knows that a particular stream contains salmon, and we can know about this by observing the bear and seeing that he returns to the stream every year during the salmon run. There's presumably no language attached to that knowledge. He has that bear has in its mind a picture of reality, a representation of reality that contains within it the idea that there are something yummy in this river at this particular time of year, and so it returns to the river looking for something yummy.
Sure.
So that's a type of knowledge that doesn't depend on language. All of this is going kind of far afield. I mean, I agree with you that for our purposes, our ability to communicate knowledge absolutely depends on language. I just don't know.
Well, I was hoping rather that you would give me a... Sure. I was hoping rather that you would give me an example of a scientific bit of knowledge that wasn't linguistic, because I think that was really where our contention lies. Are you there?
Yeah, sorry, my laptop went on power.
Okay.
No, I don't think that that's necessarily where the contention lies. I think the contention lies in this idea that there are absolutes. I think that's maybe the only contention. I'm just trying to kind of lay some groundwork.
Oh, well then, let's talk about that then.
Well, let me finish knowledge and belief.
Sure, of course.
I was only, very little of the way into what I wanted to say about that.
Really? Okay.
So knowledge was those beliefs which have in some way been demonstrated to us to be true. And this is an area where it does get difficult to separate the two out, because remember, you can't have a perfect representation of reality without that thing being reality itself. So even knowledge is somewhat provisional. But belief, I would say, are the areas in our models, our pictures of reality, where we just don't have any data. We don't have any information. But yet our models need something. Our ideas about what is out there in the world, aren't very functional if they're incomplete. Some can be, but many cannot function without having certain holes in it. And so we fill these holes in.
All right. Why have these big, grand, sweeping models of anything? What's the point and purpose of that? I don't know if you're familiar with Skinner's critique of the scientific method. He frankly thinks the idea of a hypothesis is ridiculous. He rather would like to just be in a lab and collect data and then try to interpret the data afterwards, instead of beginning with, say, a belief that all snits are snats or whatever it might be. So certainly, when you're talking about... Go ahead.
And that's one way to approach the world. If I were a biologist, I'm sure I could find an example of a muscle. A muscle approaches the world in that manner. It just waits for whatever it is that comes to it, and it waits for its food. It doesn't look out into the world. It doesn't look ahead. What you're saying is when you look at the data, or this Skinner's idea is that we look at the data and then interpret it and take that as reality and not try to look out ahead anywhere to what might be out there down the road.
Mm-hmm.